What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Disnerd podcast, episode 2. So if we do once every 2 years, that'd be cool. No, I did a show a couple years ago. I planned to do more at the time about Disney, and I had my friend Steve Anderson, who is here with us today. Say hello, Steve.
Hey Ryan, hey everybody. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, so just haven't gotten around to making another one yet. But what was our first one even? Oh, it was what did makes Disney Disney? Sort of the idea of
Yes.
when people say I'm a Disney fan, like what does that mean? What is it about Disney that because it's different stories, it's different, things, it's not one mythology. So why is it that people are so captivated by stuff produced by this company in a way that they aren't with other companies, which I
Right.
thought was a really interesting concept. But there's another idea that I've always wanted to talk about with people is the idea of Disney's what I call culture hopping. Certainly, as a teacher in the classroom, often trying and failing to teach geography. Um, this came across a few years. This came into my mind a few years ago to sort of use Disney in terms of teaching geography because
Hmm.
they're kind of bending over backwards to make movies that take place in different and in sort of to celebrate different world cultures. And I remember I was talking with a student and I said, where do you think Moana takes place? And she goes, I don't know, Mexico. So they're making the movies, but the kids aren't catching on. And to another, I think I said to that same kid, I said, like, so when you watch Frozen, is there any rhyme or reason to these names? Elsa, Kristoff, Olaf, Sven, Hans. Are these just weird names they picked out? She goes, yeah. Goes, no, honey, they're supposed to be Germanic names. But yeah, so I think that as a teacher, I've tried to make kids realize like these are all different films celebrating different cultures from around the world. But I wanted to get into why
Hmm.
that is, how that came to be, and I guess we'll just start off with you, Steve, since I've kind of gone on a bit. Like, you have any initial thoughts on this sort of phenomenon that Disney's been doing for quite some time?
Um, yeah, well, I guess it's interesting how, Walt started with European fairy tales, fables, folk tales, those kinds of things, and that was kind of where he pulled those were the main source of his stories back in the day.
Mhm.
And then it just kind of feels like that it started broadening out as so many of those fairy tales were taken, and then Disney's kind of making new movies, and they start dipping into other cultures, fairy tales and folk tales and fables, those kinds of things. Um, and with an original here and there, but it is interesting how I guess I'll just I'll throw it out as just as a observation. I don't know if I have much of a conclusion to it or a definitive like thing about it, but he definitely kicked off that idea of animation or American animation being about adapting fairy tales.
Mhm.
And then that became such a standard thing. Um, And I guess maybe it's the universality of those fairy tales. Maybe it's because his audience, he knew he was working towards a family audience with children. And fairy tales, fables, those stories were created to teach children about the world and to prepare them for the dangers, the big bad wolves and everything out there in the world, how to navigate those things when after when they grow up and they leave home. So maybe it was that kind of combination of source material and then the audience that he was looking to that he was aiming his films at. So that felt like a natural combination.
Mhm.
Anyways, yeah, rambling a little bit, but then it stands to reason that then you would start if that's kind of your bread and butter is adapting fairy tales and folk tales into animation. um, you would start running out of the European ones. You would have to start branching out and finding other cultures to look to. Um, Certainly, which is what happened.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think I was thinking about this. I don't think the intention of the company was um, to do culture hopping initially. I think it was
Mhm.
just to make fairy tales,
Mhm.
and like Pinocchio happened to take place in Italy. which is cool. But like there wasn't, and like people always say, like there's maps of the world according to Disney, and they always have Snow White in like Germany, and that really bugs me because yes, the story comes from Germany initially, but there's nothing in that film that is German. Like there's nothing like Pinocchio is like, hey, I am a Geppetto, I'm a
Yeah.
borderline offensive, but there's nothing in Snow White that's like indicative. That was Pinocchio was maybe the first movie that was like doing that, but it wasn't necessarily the intent at first. They
Yeah.
wanted to either do fairy tales like Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, or adapt popular books like Pinocchio or Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland. Yeah.
And so I think where that started to like I think when the Disney Renaissance certainly came around, and the idea was to sort of go back to doing fairy tales.
Yeah.
One of the first ones they did was, of course, Aladdin, which is about an Arabian fairy tale, and that I think was so popular. Um, I think that the it has amorphized. I think it's amorphized from just doing mythology and folklore from different countries, like Hercules and even Moana. Um, to just someone was like, well, we seem to be doing a lot of stuff about other countries. Why don't we just intentionally do something from a certain culture, whether it's a fairy tale or not? So that became
Right.
like the Princess and the Frog, representing like New Orleans culture, and even Big Hero 6 kind of being a mishmash of having Japanese stuff in there basically. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how.
Or like or Raya, the Last Dragon is certainly culturally specific, but not, as far as I know, not drawn from any actual folklore or fairy, or legends or any of that stuff from and I think just from a process standpoint, I think the reason why it started becoming, to your point, less and less about actual stories from those cultures and more about the culture, use the culture and find a story within that culture, because of the way movies started being developed once John Lasseter came in, because John was less interested in directors pitching stories up front. He was more interested in you pitching worlds. So it was more of like, what is the world of this movie? And then let's research that world, and then we'll find our story eventually.
Right.
So he wanted to see, okay, the worlds then became, you know, Asian dragons, or Latin America, with Encanto.
Yeah.
And then the stories came from the research,
Hmm.
finding thematic material, finding folklore, that kind of thing. But it started more on a broader scale
Hmm.
versus if you rewind the clock back to, like you're saying, Aladdin or Hercules, that was a much more story-driven time where development was about finding a story that you could then adapt into a Disney film. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
So it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, so it's become much more broad now, as opposed to let's adapt a specific story from that culture. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned John Lasseter coming in around 2006 when I was trying to explain this like the history to my dad. I was like, he was so popular doing what he was doing at Pixar, whereas Disney was kind of struggling a little bit. Like they said, okay, John, you're going to come over. We're going to buy Pixar, and you're going to come over and run both studios. And as soon as he did that, not only did Disney start to make Disney Animation Studios start to make sort of more successful films, uh, and what they call the second Disney Renaissance now is sort of the era. But Pixar, I think, started to make movies that were more Disney-esque in that way. For instance, Coco is a Pixar movie. It's not a WDAS movie, and that's more. It's much more up the alley, I would say, of Disney. Like it's much more because it's about Mexican and about it is to an extent about Mexican folklore, about the Day of the
Mhm.
Dead thing. But and then what was it, Luca? So those are both Pixar movies. So it's sort of this sort of not even matter whether it's technically Disney or Pixar making it. They just sort of do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's find a world, find a really interesting setting for a story
Hmm.
versus let's find a story.
Hmm.
Um, and it was making me think of this would have been, oh, I don't know, maybe in like the late 90s or the early 2000s. I was remembering there was a few Um, there was a there's a story called Ramayana,
Okay.
which is a Hindu
Mm.
um, story that Disney was adapting. I remember seeing boards in the hallways of some artwork and some like note cards and things like that that the development department was developing. I swear I swear I could be completely off base on this, but I'm pretty sure that I saw some Monkey King development off and on over the years to try to adapt that story.
Yeah.
Um, There was I worked a little bit on an Irish
Hmm.
film, an Irish folk story called The Wild Hunt. It was being directed by Roger Allers after he stepped away from Kingdom of the Sun slash Emperor's New Groove.
Hmm.
And that was kind of a combination of a bunch of different Celtic uh, mythology and also a Scottish story called Tam Lin,
Hmm.
Tam space Lin,
Hmm.
about a boy who is captured by the Queen of the Fairies and has to be rescued by a girl. That was
Hmm.
an element in Roger's story. Um, Even though that was Scottish, he sort of moved it into Ireland. So there was still very much up until the early 2000 or sort of mid 2000s, still that
Hmm.
quest for the next big cultural story that we can take and adapt. That was still
Yeah.
pretty much a thing.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned Emperor's New Groove. I forgot about that. That's another example of kind of an early example of kind of branching on just because I don't think that's based on any particular Peruvian stories. It's just kind of let's just make a movie in ancient Inca Empire and
Yeah. There's a couple. There was a in Kingdom of the Sun, the canceled version of Emperor's New Groove. There was a few kind of um, there was a few elements of
Mhm.
Incan mythology, but the story itself was
Yeah.
not certainly not turning
Mhm.
into a llama and all that kind of business.
Yeah.
But they were using the creation myth of the Incan culture, which is
Wow.
there was a figure who the world was full was shrouded in darkness early
Hmm.
on, and there was this figure who took a magic lasso and roped the sun and pulled it through the darkness into their world, and then brought light um, to the Incan Empire. And so that was kind of part of Kingdom of the Sun. But yes, to your point, the actual story, um, the main beats of the story were completely created out of, the filmmaker's imagination.
Mm, yeah. So that was gonna be my next question to you is what were you present for if any of this? You seem to have answered that pretty thoroughly. I
Oh
was
yeah, sorry,
yeah.
I skipped ahead.
But no, it's and then you get into other stuff like so there's stuff that Disney like never did that other companies did that tackled and now they own them. So a good example is Anastasia.
Yeah,
Anastasia was I remember a guy I watched online said a lot of people think Anastasia is a cheap Disney ripoff, but it's
yeah.
not. It's a very expensive Disney ripoff. But now it is
Yeah.
Disney, and a lot of people through the years have mistaken it for Disney, and now they're correct. And that's, I mean, if you want to watch it on Disney Plus, an animated film about Russian history and Russian culture and all that, you have Anastasia in a similar way. Well, Ferdinand, first of all, was of course originally Disney. It was
Yeah.
the great short animated film, and then I guess they lost the rights somewhere over the decades, and Fox came in and made the Ferdinand movie, which is very much a in Disney fashion, very much in Spain. I don't know if you've seen the movie, but it's
No.
yeah, it's very much a Spanish movie. It's very much you see the bullfights in Spain and stuff. So it's and then they bought that, and there's a movie called Rio that Blue Sky also made. That's
Yeah.
Disney owns that now, so they don't have to worry
And
about it.
those are all on Disney Plus, huh?
Yeah, I don't know if they're on
Wow.
Disney Plus. I would assume they are because they're animated films that are owned now by the Walt Disney.
Yeah. That's so funny. I know intellectually that they bought Fox, but I always forget that now those all the movies like that are part of Disney. It's just very bizarre how.
Yeah.
the reach of the company is now. But
Yeah, but also you didn't mention this, but this might have been well, this had to have been during your tenure. Maybe you forgot about it, but there was a movie that was announced. It was very public. They were teasing it in Zootopia. It was a movie called Gigantic that was going to come.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be a Spanish movie, was it not? It was supposed to celebrate
Mm,
Spanish. Yeah.
that's correct. That's absolutely correct. I had forgotten that was set in Spain. Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is not necessarily from the original fairy tale, but they were again looking for, you know,
Worlds.
a world, yeah,
Yeah.
and something that hadn't been done, had something we hadn't explored yet in a film, and they took this big research trip to Spain, and they were going to do that. I'd forgotten about that. You're right. Um, yeah, that would have been really cool.
Yeah. Um, so I guess like the other thing we can talk about is what is there still potential for? Because you mentioned, I mean, first of all, my name is Ryan Thomas Murphy. What do you think I want to see? No, but like it's crazy to me that they've done all this stuff, and I mean, no one's ever made a movie about a damn leprechaun. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that like this shit writes itself, man. Like, there's a leprechaun, but he's unlike his family, and he doesn't want to search for gold. He wants to play music or something. I don't know. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
it's just So you mentioned Tamlin or the Wild Hunt, whatever it was called, but I think a movie about Leprechaun. I mean, he did Disney. Well, himself made uh, um,
Oh yeah. Dario
Darby
Gil.
O'Gill and the Little People. Yeah, but like I think something more about like a young leprechaun who teams up with I don't know, something or other. It would be a great thing. Would you have any thoughts on like? It's okay if there's nothing out there, but
I mean, I think I was really sorry to see Roger Aller's Irish project go away because I did think that was some really untapped mythology that was in there. Not that he was doing leprechauns exactly, but there was shoot, what was it? He wasn't a it wasn't a gnome. There was some little critter in there that it wasn't a leprechaun, but was like he was a little magical, mischief maker, and some really cool stuff. I would love to see that someday. Just
yeah.
kind of Irish um, folktale. Maybe and maybe it's more about, is there I guess when you say leprechaun, yes, that's a really um, gettable character. Maybe there's such a it's become such a cliche, the little green hat and the red beard and all that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it would be cool to maybe there's something with Disney to be able to say could we reinvent a leprechaun or could we go back to the is there is there some different way to attach it to attack it?
Hmm.
I could see maybe that might be a hesitation to do it is because it's become so connected to almost a cliche now,
Hmm.
um, that maybe that's part of people's hesitation to do anything with it is because but there's got to be a different way to do it. I definitely think that would be really cool to do.
Yeah. I also had a few ideas. I was, just looking at list of countries and stuff, and
Mm,
one thing they've never really done, I don't think proper justice to, is Japan. Again, we talked about Big Hero 6 as sort of modern Japan
mm,
machines and stuff like that. But as far, I mean, God, there's no shortage of Japanese history and folklore, samurai
yeah,
swords and ninjas and stuff. They could, but again, there's, has someone else already kind of done it? There was a movie from Leica several years ago called Kubo and the Two Strings.
yeah,
It was very sort of Disney-esque. It very much felt like a Disney movie. Let's go to old feudal Japan and follow a young boy looking for his parents. It was very, but I still think they could do something like that.
yeah,
When you think of Scandinavia, you would go with Frozen. I don't know if Frozen is super Scandinavian other than their names. But the other things you would think of would be like Vikings, like actually on Viking ships. Well, DreamWorks already kind of tackled that with How to Train Your Dragon. And
right,
think of Viking mythology, Norse mythology. Well, they already have that with Thor over at Marvel. You can't really make an anime movie about Thor at this point. Everyone's thinking Marvel.
Yeah, true.
So I think they're kind of trapped on that.
Yeah, Norse gods, you can't Loki, Thor, Odin, all those guys are kind of owned by Marvel now, I guess.
No, exactly. The other thing I could think of, I think there's a huge amount of potential here is Coptic culture, which means Egyptian culture.
Uh,
Give people a history lesson. The modern day, when you watch a movie about ancient Egypt and mummy, like the Mummy or something, that's Coptic. Then there was an Arab invasion, so modern day Egypt is Arabic, and in fact, so like the Cops are to Egypt kind of what Native Americans are to America. They're the people who were there before the people came in. So, but yeah, ancient Egyptian slash Coptic culture, essentially mythology. Ra, the king of and Seth and Neytiri and
mhm.
all those figures. They did make a live action movie several years ago that got very bad reviews called Gods of Egypt.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right.
but something like that because Hercules worked out so well for Disney for as far as the Greek mythology. We know that when I was growing up, and the three sort of mythologies that you could read about were Greek, Norse, and Egyptian.
Yeah,
And so the other two have kind of been covered, but I think that and the Irish thing would be ripe for the picking
that's a great idea.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're in a position now, Steve. Pitch it.
Yeah. Huh. I love that idea. It's true. There really hasn't been, I mean, I guess Prince of Egypt, but that's not really, that's biblical, not
It's also
necessarily.
more about the Hebrews.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
there you go talk about that's another culture is the Jewish culture, but that's so mired in not mired, excuse me, but that's so identified with just biblical stories that
yeah.
it's kind of we've seen a lot. I don't know if any sort of Jewish Hebrew thing you could do that's outside of the biblical realm. Like, yeah, we also
Yeah.
did this.
Yeah.
uh,
I always thought that, I mean, this kind of goes back to Anastasia, I guess, but Russian folklore, Russian, I was developing a witch project quite a few years ago
oh
and kind
wow.
of finding witches from different cultures to kind of mash them up together, like a global witch coalition kind of thing.
Hmm.
And the Baba Yaga character, I know the Baba Yaga character has been adapted in lots of different ways, but she's a really cool character.
Yeah.
There's so many weird animation ideas that are associated with her, like her house on the two chicken legs and you know all that stuff. It feels so right for animation.
Well, I'll be honest with you, Steve. I think you could get away with that. Like, I don't think that that's been done. When I think of Baba Yaga, I think of John Wick. They call, John Wick movies. They
Yeah,
call him Baba Yaga. That's all I think about. So I don't know that many people really do know the mythology behind that. And
yeah.
that's actually Romanian, isn't it? That's a Romanian.
Oh,
Um,
it might be. Sorry, I might have gotten that. Yeah, I might be off on that.
but
Yeah.
that'd be cool too because I was actually thinking about that. I was like, the only thing Romanian I could think of was like what they did with Hotel Transylvania.
Right.
Uh, you know,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, that's a fantastic. We're cooking up some good stuff here, Steve.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's so much out there. It's I mean, certainly with Disney, it's whether or not it's I guess because directors pitch their own material,
mhm.
it's getting directors to kind of think about those kinds of things. I guess some directors, or just some people may not think of some of these stories, or might not even be aware of some of this
Mhm.
mythology that's out there. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's cool to think about. Do think the Egyptian thing's really neat, a really neat idea.
yeah,
Yeah, very visual too, just super animation
yeah.
friendly, you know.
Mhm. Well, see, I was just thinking, just a random thought now is that there's actually a little bit of, I won't say debate. It's not like people typing on their message, no, but about where Little Mermaid's even supposed to be because the
Oh yeah.
story is Danish originally. People will say, well, clearly it's in Denmark or whatever, but like, why does Sebastian have a Caribbean accent? And it must be somewhere in the Caribbean. So that's the, you know, I don't know.
Well, that's it. Let's see if I can form this thought as I'm talking, but that's kind of an interesting, Mulan, Mushu is Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Um, Disney would adapt in the quote unquote old days, which were not that old,
Hmm.
but sort of pre-Lasseter, I guess. You would adapt those. You would find different fairy tales and folk tales and legends and things from different cultures to adapt, but still um,
Yeah.
be a little loose with how authentic they were to the culture, or how there was still sort of Western ideas that would creep in there, just because, hey, Eddie Murphy's funny and he's popular, and let's put him as a sidekick for Mulan. That's fun. You couldn't do that today.
Hmm.
Um, uh, so it's just, I don't know, it just makes me think it kind of creates that, makes me think of that idea of, yeah, why does Sebastian have a Caribbean accent? Uh, I'm sure I'm blanking on other examples, but I'm sure there's tons of examples of like, well, wait a minute, there's you know, a British villain. Oh, there's a British, isn't Jafar a British actor?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's speaking very American,
Accents except for the British bad
English.
guy.
Yeah.
Why does um everyone has very Arabic names except for Iago, who has this very
Uh-huh.
and it's like,
Yeah.
why is he named after the villain of Othello? Uh
Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Things
so
have definitely changed, and the world audiences really want more authenticity in their
mhm.
adaptations, and then in casting, also the filmmaker who's behind that particular adaptation.
Yeah.
You've got Ron
Mhm.
Clements, John Musker, two white guys that did
Oh, wow.
Aladdin,
Yeah.
Hercules, um, Moana,
Yeah.
Princess and the Frog. I'm doing Princess and the Frog. I'm neither black nor a female, uh,
Nor from New Orleans.
or from New Orleans. So it's definitely a different era now where you have to be a little more sensitive to those things.
Yeah, but like I just had a thought. Damn.
Sorry.
No, but like the you mentioned, oh, I had a thought. Oh, now I'm gonna think
Shoot.
of it an hour from now. But no, like I still think it's a really cool thing that oh, shoot. Another one being Pocahontas is like the only Disney princess
Yes.
that they I think they were going with folklore, and then we're just like, why don't we just go with history? And so but Pocahontas is obviously a true story. The other thing is that some of the things they haven't covered in features, they have covered in shorts. A good example, if you do want to um, directly Disney Russian tale. Peter and the Wolf from the
Hmm.
40s is very Russian.
Yes.
And then I was just thinking, like, why don't they make a Scottish movie? Like, well, what's Scottish folklore? Well, of course, Nessie. Well, they did.
Uh-huh.
They did make
Yep.
the Ballad of Nessie as a short film. So yeah.
Hmm. Yep. I feel like am I crazy? The Little Match Girl short that was done, gosh, must have been really early 2000s, I think. Did they set that in Russia? I can't remember now.
I have no idea.
Uh,
I'm getting that confused with the small one, which is very
oh yeah.
blue.
Very,
But that's
very not Russian.
yeah, very not Russian. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
interesting. The short gives you a different way to kind of adapt. And then the American folklore of Sleepy Hollow and Johnny Appleseed and Paul Bunyan and John Henry, what they did more
and
recently.
Pecos Bill, John Henry Pecos
Pecos
Bill.
Bill,
And
yeah.
actually, there was also, in addition, I think Disney has done all three of those, but there was also, when I was growing up, there was a live action movie called Tall Tale,
That's
which
right.
combined all three of those into sort of yeah. So
That's right.
it's fantastic stuff. I
Yeah.
did the other thing was thinking of was one of my friends is so when you talk about Raya, it's like, well, what is Raya supposed to be like? Mulan is obviously very Chinese. Raya is just Southeast Asian, which is a region, it's not a country.
Right.
So if it's like, I think if you Google like what does Southeast Asia consist of, it's like 10 different countries: Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, but essentially Vietnam. I mean, that's the big one. Malaysia, so that's a big one too. But like that's sort of the area they were going with there. And so I remember when I first moved to my town I'm in now, I went to a church group and met a guy who's Vietnamese,
Mm.
and I was like, "Oh, you're Vietnamese. Like, why don't you watch Raya?" And he's like, "What?" I'm like, no, it's about y'all. Uh, but he actually eventually did watch it. He said he really liked it. So
Oh, he did.
yeah, so
That's good. That's good.
mhm.
I
Yeah,
don't think there's nothing culturally specific to, I mean, story-wise, I should say, like mythologically consistent with Southeast Asian folklore. Is there in Raya? That's all invented as far as I know, right?
your guess is as good as mine. We could ask some
Yeah.
Malaysian or Vietnamese folks. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
I was also developing a Chinese dragon
Mm,
story quite a while ago as well. That was really that sort of I won't say it led to Raya, but it was a precursor to Raya, and um, there was a lot of really cool. The Asian dragon was really
mhm,
a cool potential for animation. What I found interesting, though, as we started doing research, is that a lot of experts were saying it's really dicey for Chinese culture to anthropomorphize or humanize a dragon because they're supposed to be above humans. They are celestial. They
mm,
are superior to humans. And so to bring them
yeah,
down to a level that is like a human is rather inflammatory, which
yeah.
I think I'd heard there was some issues with Mushu back in the day
Huh,
when that movie came out. I don't know what the feeling was with Raya because there is that um, Aquafina playing a dragon in
yeah,
Raya, which is also very human, uh,
yeah,
not celestial. Um, but I really love the idea of making an Asian dragon character.
yeah.
Um, I had different story ideas for how they could be, but that was part of a little bit of my hesitation was so many of the experts were saying, you sh that's really tricky to be doing that. You're going to
Yeah.
alienate the audience if you give them personality. And it's like, well, that's what we do here at
Mhm.
Disney is you create characters with personality. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do just a very stoic uh, dragon or a dragon that's more animal-like
Mhm.
than having a personality. So
Yeah.
again, I don't know if there was any backlash with Raya or not, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So Disney's also never done a Western other than Pecos Bill
No, or
or
Home on the Range.
Home on the Range, I guess might count, but like it, I don't know what you would do with a Western because it's inherently sort of mature, sort of make.
Oh, I sorry to interrupt you. I was just on the Home on the Range front. It's interesting because that movie started off as a full-blown Western. I mean, the artwork that was hanging in the halls, we were all just our eyes were bugging out because it was cowboys, cigarettes, guns, saloons. Like they had a villain that was a ghost rider. It's like Ghost Riders in the Sky, and he was this ghost cowboy that rode in the with a whole group of other ghost riders.
Mm,
And it was like, oh man, that's so cool. But I don't think Disney cannot do smoking, certainly.
nope.
Gunplay would be bad. You can't drink in a saloon,
Mhm.
which I'm sure is why things on that
Yeah.
project moved more towards the animal side of things. Um, but yeah, the idea of doing a cowboy,
Yeah.
like with cowboy characters,
Hmm.
sheriffs and outlaws and bank robbers and all that stuff. Oh, that would be so neat. But I think that would be really tough for Disney to do.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because you look at the early Golden Age movies and they're full of drinking and smoking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like he didn't care. I
Yeah.
heard, I have not seen the Zemeckis remake of Pinocchio yet. I
Oh,
don't think I'm missing out. But
terrible.
someone told me
Terrible.
like they're at Pleasure Island, they're drinking root beer, and I'm like, and so what's the point then?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Doesn't that sort of negate the idea?
yeah, and I also heard a story. We're getting way off topic now, but that's okay. This is great because, like, I think it was 2007 or something that Disney completely banned smoking from their movies,
Yeah,
and they hired Tom Hanks to come in and play Walt Disney himself. And he's like, "Well, if I'm going to play Walt Disney, I want to show him smoking. That's
that's right.
kind of a big part of who he was." And they're like, "Well, you can't." it's a rule, but it's also Tom Hanks. Like you want to listen to him, so they reached a compromise. I don't know if you know this, but in the movie, the final movie, they walk into his office and he's like stabbing out a cigarette off
Uh,
screen, and that was the compromise they came to in that movie. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they've undone this. I don't know on Disney Plus what version they have up there, but on the Western
Hmm.
idea, the Pecos Bill short that you mentioned one,
Yeah.
I know several years ago they had actually gone in and digitally removed the cigarettes that because Pecos Bill like rolls a cigarette with his tongue and
Yeah.
lights it with his tongue or something like that. He does some really cool kind of cartoony thing. They digitally removed that.
Yeah.
There's a couple other instances. Oh, there was a short in one of those combination films from the 40s
Hmm.
called The Martins and the Coys, and it was kind of a Hatfields and McCoys type story,
Yeah.
two
Hmm.
feuding, uh,
It goes back to our westerns. Yeah. Good. Like
and
they've
they
done.
kill each other basically, and they shoot each other and they kill each other, and then at the end they're up in heaven still fighting.
Oh, I don't.
And they cut that cartoon out of the movie. So for a while, if you got a copy of it was called Make Mine Music. I
Yeah.
believe it was in that film, which was which Peter and the Wolf was part of, and
Yep.
some of those other cartoons. That cartoon was cut out. I don't
That's
know if
really
they
interesting because
restored it or not, but
I've obviously seen. I pride myself on having seen all 63, Walt Disney
yeah.
movies, and I was very. I mean, the version of Hatfield or not Hatfield's Martins and the Coys that I've seen is that she's chasing him out of the house at the end, and that's
Oh,
the version I'm aware of. And I fancy myself a pretty big Disney expert, so I'm very
yeah,
surprised.
maybe they lop off the ending or something where
Yeah,
they
I don't know. That's really cool. I have heard the Pecos Bill. There's a part. There's a part where he's like he kisses the girl and his guns turn upward and start
yeah,
shooting.
yeah, yeah, you can't do any of that stuff anymore.
Yeah, it's just
Anyway, sorry, off topic.
yeah, no, but well, Steve, I think we covered a lot of ground, and you've actually there's been some revelatory stuff. I mean, so before we close out, is there any last thoughts of anything we've missed or anything?
Hmm. I don't think so. Trying to think of some good some summing up of ideas. I think it's well, it's interesting. Oh, one thing I was going to bring up earlier too, maybe this is just a way to close it out, is it's you had talked about Snow White being, now so associated with Germany.
Hmm.
There's certainly, in the Epcot Park in Florida, they have the World Showcase with all the different country pavilions, and now they've essentially assigned a Disney animated film for each one of those. But Beauty and the Beast or Ratatouille now, I guess, is France.
Hmm.
Brother Bear is sort of Canada.
Oh,
uh,
you're
uh, um, what were the other ones? Aladdin is Morocco.
Morocco. That's an
Snow,
interesting.
yeah, Snow White, of course, is Germany. Mulan would be China. Um,
Rapunzel is also Germany, they say.
yes,
Yeah, but that's
Frozen, of
interesting.
course, has taken over the Norway Pavilion.
Yeah, and I always say Frozen isn't specifically Norway movie. It's just sort of
No,
generally Scandinavian. Some might even argue Danish. But okay, a couple points I have to now bring back up. So
yes,
one, you said Brother Bear. Okay, Brother Bear is really interesting because one of my closest friends is lives in Toronto, and he's always talks about Canadian stuff in movies or representation, whatever you want to say. And I'm like, well, your movie is for Disney is Brother Bear. It's like, no, that's Alaskan. And I'm like,
yeah,
well, it's kind of Canadian, isn't he? He's like, well, Disney, I think Disney, he says, officially says it's Alaska. I'm like, where is this official thing? The evidence I would give for being very Canadian is that the two moose,
yeah,
Brett and Took, are very intentionally voiced by two of the most iconic Canadian comedians, which I believe are Dave Thomas and Rick Moranis.
yep.
So there's that. And then, oh, yes, I was going to say, here's a big one: African culture, because
Oh yeah,
Disney's made two movies that take place in Africa. One is about animals exclusively, and the other one is about a white guy from Britain who gets washed ashore. So I mean, so the closest I will say this: the closest they ever come to doing an actual African mythological story is they were developing one called Aida, and Elton John. They wanted to hire Elton John to come in, and Elton John said, "I'm not really interested in making another animated film, but if you wanted to turn this into a Broadway play, we could do that. So Aida became, I think, Disney's first original stage production.
Right.
And so with that in mind, I went out and bought the soundtrack, and then I was surprised, like they die in the end. I'm like, this isn't Disney.
Uh,
If they wanted to turn Aida into an actual Disney movie, because it's Nubian culture, specifically Nubia and the Great Kingdom in Africa, um, they would have to change the ending where the two lovers die in the end together. But
yeah.
it's also like Mansa Musa. What was he the emperor of? Some sort of the Mali Empire in ancient Africa. So anyway,
Uh,
there's a couple of other last minute thoughts.
oh, sorry. I have another last minute thought.
Okay.
That makes me think of, I remember Rescuers Down Under
Yes.
being very controversial because so in the final film, they have a little, um, like basically Caucasian kid
Hmm.
as the little boy that needs to be rescued by the Bernard and Bianca. Um, he has a very, very slight Australian accent. He says no worries, I think, once, but it's very, very barely Australian,
Hmm.
more American than anything. But then I remember even beyond what was on the screen, apparently the original idea
Hmm.
they were developing was that the kid who was needing to be rescued was going to be an an Aboriginal boy,
Hmm.
and they moved away from that and put it into a Caucasian boy, and that came out when I was at Cal Arts, and so I remember and Disney gave us a screening. They would screen whatever the latest movie is. They would rent out a theater,
Hmm.
bus all the Cal Arts kids to the theater to share their new film. And so they did that with Rescuers Down Under. Packed packed theater. All of Cal Arts was there,
Hmm.
and everyone knew that there was this backstory to the production, that there was an Aboriginal boy initially. So in the Q&A afterwards, people were like, "Why did you change it to a white kid?" And people like Cal Arts students were just
And this is
pissed
in
off.
1990, not 2025.
Exactly, exactly. So it's interesting that fervor Disney has always kind of gotten flack for their adaptations for westernizing
Hmm.
either the actual stories that they're adapting or the cultures that they're using.
Hmm.
And so no real conclusion to that story, but it just made me think of that. And uh,
They could still do an Aboriginal story. We've gotten, yeah.
yeah,
There's probably some Aboriginal mythology, and Aborigines I think are very closely related to Polynesians, because obviously New Zealand's right next to Australia.
right.
Yeah, and then also I pointed out to a friend that if you watch Lilo and Stitch, David, the character of David, is wearing a Maui hook on his necklace. It's not trying to foreshadow.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, it's not trying to foreshadow anything because they didn't know they were going to make that new movie. But it just shows you that that's been a piece of their folklore for that's long before that movie came out. You always see people wearing Maui hooks, and it's just part of their culture.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of funny. So,
Yeah. It's a connected universe.
yeah. Oh, I wish you know how I feel about that. All right.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think that'll do wrap us up. And God, this was so much fun. I had a
Yeah.
ball for the past hour or so. Like this was, and I always love talking to you about Disney. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show, Steve. And yeah, thanks so much.
It was awesome. Thanks for having me as always, Ryan. It was a pleasure.
All right, guys, that'll do us for today. And if you have any thoughts, please share them below. If we missed anything, you want to see a Egyptian movie, Baba Yaga, Aborigine. I mean, just leave your comments. And there's something we totally missed. Like, hey, I'm from Azerbaijan. Where's our Azerbaijani, thing? Like,
Yes.
leave it in the comments, and we'll get back to you. Thank you very much. Until next time, I'm Ryan Murphy, and thank you very much for joining us here on the Disnerd podcast.